try to stay focused at work. You keep your head down, meet your deadlines, maybe even go the extra mile when no one's watching. But somehow, it never seems to be enough. Someone else always gets the credit. The promotion goes to the one who knows how to talk, not the one who actually delivers. And the person you thought was on your side, they're suddenly very quiet when your name comes up in a meeting. You've probably brushed it off, told yourself you're overthinking it, that if you just work harder, things will balance out. But what if they won't? What if what's happening isn't random, and the reason you feel invisible, drained, or constantly second-guessing yourself is because someone's making sure you feel that way, not with shouting or open hostility. No, it's more subtle than that. A compliment that feels slightly off, an offer to help that somehow leaves you with more problems than before, a friendly face that seems a little too interested in your next move. You're not imagining it. What you're feeling is real. And centuries ago, Niccolò Machiavelli described this exact kind of manipulation, except he saw it in royal courts instead of conference rooms. His lessons weren't about being cruel, they were about understanding how power moves silently through perception, positioning, and control of the narrative. Today, those same tactics are alive and well, and some people use them to climb higher without ever being noticed. They are the 6 workplace manipulators Machiavelli would have warned you about. They blend in, they smile, but they operate with quiet precision. And if you don't learn to outsmart them, they will outmaneuver you. This isn't about becoming like them. It's about understanding how they work, so you can protect yourself, hold your ground, and win on your own terms. Let's begin with Machiavelli. Most people hear his name and think of lies, betrayal, power games. But the truth is, Machiavelli wasn't telling people to be cruel. He was warning them about how the world really works. He lived in a time where saying the wrong thing could get you killed, so he wrote The Prince as a survival manual, not for villains, but for people stuck in systems where power mattered more than honesty. Now, think about your own workplace. Have you ever seen someone rise just because they were close to the right people, or someone who always knows how to twist a situation to look like the hero, even when they barely did anything? That's what Machiavelli was talking about. And here's the point, it's not enough to work hard. You have to understand the hidden rules. It's a social chessboard, because some people are playing a completely different game, and if you don't see it, you'll keep losing without knowing why. So no, this isn't about becoming manipulative. It's about protecting yourself, about seeing through the masks. Because once you know what to look for, everything changes. You walk into work thinking it's about doing your job well, but somewhere along the line, you start noticing it's not. It's about how people see you. It's about timing. It's about who's talking behind closed doors and who's listening. That's the real game. And the toughest part, most people never admit it. They tell you to be a team player while quietly pushing their own agenda. They smile in meetings but fight for credit behind your back. They act like everything's fair until you start winning. Then suddenly, things get complicated. You might find yourself getting less support, fewer opportunities, or unexplained tension, and no one ever says why. It's just a feeling, like the room changed, but you missed the moment it happened. That's what makes manipulation so effective. It's quiet, strategic, social. You can't measure it on a spreadsheet, but you feel it in your gut. And while you're trying to play fair, someone else is studying your habits, your reactions, your blind spots, not to help you, but to stay one step ahead. Machiavelli understood this. He said, "Men in general judge more from appearances than from reality." That's still true today. In modern workplaces, perception often wins over performance. So, if you've ever been blindsided by a promotion you thought was yours, if you've ever watched someone rise by doing less but being seen more, then you've already felt the effects of modern power games. Now, it's time to name the players. And the first one you need to watch out for is the opportunist chameleon. You've seen this person before. At first, they seem harmless, even likable. They blend in, smile at the right times, nod along in meetings. They seem easygoing, flexible, always agreeable. But look closer. This person doesn't just adapt, they mimic, they mirror whoever is in power, whoever's winning, whoever's opinion is most popular at the moment. They watch the room, read the dynamics, and shift their entire personality to match the energy of whoever can benefit them most. Today, they're your friend. Tomorrow, they're praising the very person they swore they didn't trust. You might notice how their values suddenly evolve when a new manager comes in, how their ideas magically align with leadership just before performance reviews, how they somehow position themselves near every successful project, even if they barely contributed. They don't start conflict, they survive it by never standing still. And the danger is, they're hard to detect because they don't come at you directly. They wait, they observe, they echo. Machiavelli would have called them useful shadows. He wrote, "The one who adapts his conduct to the times will succeed, whereas he who clings to ways of the past will be lost." In today's workplace, the opportunist chameleon uses that idea to advance, not by doing more, but by attaching themselves to power. They know where the wind is blowing, and they always make sure they're standing on the winning side. Have you ever worked with someone who seemed to agree with you until leadership disagreed and suddenly they didn't? Have you ever shared an idea and the next week heard it repeated, slightly reworded in their voice? That's not forgetfulness, that's a tactic. And here's the trap. Confronting them rarely works. They're too slippery. They'll act shocked. They'll say you must have misunderstood, and you'll walk away questioning your own memory. So how do you deal with them? You stay aware. You stop oversharing. You document your work, your ideas, your input. You stop giving away your strategy for free. The chameleon only thrives when you don't notice the change in color. Once you spot the chameleon, the illusion breaks. But the next manipulator is harder to see because they never want to be seen at all. Let's talk about the puppet master. This is the person who rarely takes center stage, but always seems to have influence. They avoid direct confrontation. They don't speak loudly in meetings, but somehow they control the narrative from behind the scenes. You know something's off when conflicts suddenly appear between teammates, conflicts that seem to come out of nowhere. Deadlines shift, doubts are planted, relationships start to feel tense, even though no one's being openly hostile. That's the puppet master at work. They operate through whispers, side conversations, selective information. You'll notice they're always close to the people in power, but never so close that their fingerprints are visible. They plant ideas in the minds of others, letting them carry out the moves. That way, the puppet master's hands stay clean. Maybe you've seen it. A coworker suddenly turns cold toward you, and you have no idea why. A project changes direction, but no one can trace where the decision came from, or someone is mysteriously excluded from opportunities, yet everyone acts like it was just an oversight. This manipulator doesn't seek attention, they seek control. Machiavelli wrote, "A wise ruler neither wholly relies on others nor reveals the full extent of his intentions." That's exactly how the puppet master moves, calculated, quiet, and strategic. So ask yourself, is there someone at your workplace who never takes a clear stance yet always seems to know what's going on? Someone who positions themselves as a confidant but never shares anything vulnerable themselves? Someone who never gets blamed but is always near the blame? That's not coincidence, that's a structure. And the moment you confront them, they'll play innocent. I was just passing along what I heard. I didn't want to get involved. But by then, the damage is already done, and they're already 3 moves ahead. To protect yourself, you have to stop playing checkers when they're playing chess. Be careful who you vent to. Pay attention to how stories travel through the office, and never give someone the power to influence your reputation in a room you're not in. The puppet master thrives on silence. The less you notice them, the more control they have. But once you start listening between the conversations, you'll find the strings. But sometimes the danger isn't in what's said behind your back, it's in what's said to your face. That brings us to the third manipulator, the faux ally. This one is tricky because they don't just act friendly, they feel like a friend. They laugh with you, share frustrations, maybe even open up about their own challenges. You vent to them, you trust them, and why wouldn't you? They seem to get you. But slowly, quietly, the trust begins to leak. You might start noticing that things you said in confidence are now common knowledge, or that when you're not around, your name gets mentioned, but not with the same warmth they show you in person. It's little things at first, a passive comment in a meeting, a joke that feels too pointed, a pattern you can't quite explain. This manipulator plays both sides. They stay close enough to you to seem loyal, but also close enough to others to keep options open. Because when the tides change, they want to be on the winning side, no matter who's left behind. And the worst part, you don't see it coming, because betrayal hits harder when it's delivered by someone who said they had your back. Have you ever had a coworker who praised your ideas one-on-one but stayed silent when you needed support in public? Or someone who always knew your stress points but later used them to make you look unstable, unprepared, or overreactive? That's not support, that's strategy disguised as sympathy. Machiavelli warned that it is double pleasure to deceive the deceiver. The faux ally thrives on the closeness they build with you, not to help you, but to study you. They need access, and the fastest way to get it is through trust. So what can you do? Stay kind, but stay sharp. Don't confuse shared frustration with shared loyalty. Pay attention to consistency. Real allies support you both in private and in public. Faux ones shift depending on who's watching. And if someone always seems to agree with you but never defends you, they were never with you in the first place. And once you realize that, something shifts. But just when you start pulling away from the faux ally, you run into a different kind of threat, one that doesn't want your trust. They want your light. This brings us to the fourth manipulator, the spotlight saboteur. You know exactly who this is, the person who always feels just a little too threatened when you do well. The one who tightens up when you get praise, then suddenly points out a flaw or questions your methods just to dim your shine. They don't attack you directly. They ask innocent questions like, "Are you sure that's the final version?" Or, "Did you check that with the client?" Right after everyone applauded your work. Their goal isn't to help, it's to plant doubt. Because deep down, the spotlight saboteur can't handle someone else standing in the light. Your success feels like their failure. Your visibility is a threat to their control. So instead of getting better, they try to make you smaller. Have you ever worked with someone who always found something wrong with your work after it was well received? Or someone who helped you by rewriting your emails, double-checking your math, or suggesting edits to your ideas, only to position themselves as the real problem solver? That's not collaboration, that's control. Machiavelli once said, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him." The spotlight saboteur wants to be surrounded by people who don't outshine them, so they chip away at your confidence before it grows into influence. So, what do? Don't shrink. Document your work. Share your wins publicly. And if someone constantly questions you after every success, don't explain yourself. Expose the pattern. Because the only thing a spotlight saboteur fears more than being outshined is being seen clearly for what they really are. But not all manipulators come at you with criticism. Some come dressed in concern, empathy, and emotional closeness. That's where the fifth manipulator shows up, the guilt strategist. This one doesn't fight you with ego. They fight you with emotion, their weapon of choice, guilt. At first, they seem kind, supportive, thoughtful. They might say things like, "I've always had your back," or "After everything I've done for you." They'll remind you of the times they helped you, listened to you, or stayed late for you. But when you start setting boundaries, saying no, or simply focusing on your own growth, suddenly you're selfish, unappreciative, changing. This manipulator uses guilt to keep you small, to keep you giving, to make sure your emotional energy stays tied to them, so that any step forward you take feels like a step away from your loyalty. Have you ever had someone make you feel bad for not including them in a project, even though they didn't contribute? Or for not responding to a late-night message, even though it wasn't urgent? Or maybe you've heard lines like, "Wow, I guess you're too busy for me now," right after you took on more responsibilities or started receiving more recognition. That's not disappointment, that's manipulation. Machiavelli understood this subtle play when he wrote, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." In other words, people will shift their tone when you shift your position, especially if they relied on you staying beneath your potential. The guilt strategist doesn't want control of your role. They want control of your conscience. So how do you push back? You learn to sit with the discomfort of disappointing people who benefit from your lack of boundaries. You remind yourself that someone who truly respects you won't weaponize your kindness, and you stop explaining every decision that's meant to protect your peace. Because guilt should never be the price you pay for growing. But even when you set boundaries, stay sharp and protect your light, there's still one more manipulator who's harder to face, not because they're smarter, but because the system protects them. This is the untouchable. You've seen this person. Maybe it's the senior manager who talks down to people, makes offhand comments, or takes liberties others would be fired for, but somehow nothing ever happens. Complaints vanish. HR turns quiet. People whisper behind their back but never say anything out loud. Why? Because the untouchable has something most others don't. Immunity. It might be political capital, personal connections, or just enough charm to keep people second-guessing themselves. They've been around long enough to know how to bend the rules without breaking them, and when they do break them, someone else takes the fall. They use fear, familiarity, or influence to create an environment where questioning them feels dangerous. And if you do speak up, they'll play the victim, or worse, flip the story and make you the problem. Have you ever worked somewhere where people would say, "That's just how they are," or where leadership looked the other way, even when the behavior was clearly toxic? Have you ever seen someone do far less work, create far more damage, and still be rewarded, while the people cleaning up their mess got burned out or blamed? That's not luck. That's protected manipulation. Machiavelli wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved if one must choose." The untouchable doesn't need to be liked. They just need to stay above consequence. So how do you deal with someone who plays by their own rules? Sometimes the answer isn't confrontation, it's calculation. You assess how much power they hold and what it would cost you to challenge them. You gather evidence, you find allies, and if nothing changes, you start planning your exit or your strategy to rise around them. Because not every battle is meant to be fought head-on, especially when the battlefield is already tilted. The untouchable wants you to believe they can't be challenged, but that's only true if everyone keeps playing along. And that's the deeper truth behind all 6 of these manipulators, whether it's the chameleon, the puppet master, the faux ally, the spotlight saboteur, the guilt strategist, or the untouchable. They don't thrive because they're powerful. They thrive because they go unnoticed, unquestioned, undisturbed. But now you see them. You understand how they move, how they twist the narrative, how they turn trust, silence, and even kindness into leverage. And once you see the game, you don't have to be played by it. Machiavelli didn't tell us to become like them. He told us to wake up, to pay attention, to understand that survival isn't always about being the loudest or the smartest, but about being the most aware. Because in every workplace, power is shifting, quietly, constantly, and the people who thrive long-term aren't always the most talented. They're the ones who can sense the undercurrent and move accordingly. So here's the question I'll leave you with. Have you ever dealt with one of these 6 manipulators at work? And how did you respond? Let me know in the comments. Someone out there might need to hear your story more than you realize. And if this opened your eyes in any way, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insights that help you protect your mind, your energy, and your place in this world. Because manipulation only wins when awareness is absent. But now you're aware. Stay sharp, stay grounded, and most importantly, stay in control of your story.